Hi and welcome to the LvL Up Podcast. My name is KG Habiani, and today I'm joined by a very special person that I met recently. She is an award-winning speaker, famous MC, public speaking coach, and facilitator. And of course, I'm talking about none other than Zoya Mabuto. How are you doing, Zoya?
I'm great, thanks. We can't omit the fact that I am Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa. My husband will listen to this and say, hey, when you go to TNC, do you omit the other part of your surname? I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you,
No,
KG.
great. You know, the reason I didn't say your surname is the first time I heard your name, I thought, okay, maybe I think Zoya is a white lady. And then you walked in and then it's Zoya. Then I was like, okay, well, here we go. And you said your surname and I was like, wow, that's the most African surname I've heard in a very long time.
100%.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Zoya.
I mean, it is really good to be here.
Sure.
I'm excited to be part of this conversation.
First things first, what we just mentioned now, speaking. The first time I heard you do your intro, I was so taken by just the power and the presence you had. Please tell me, what led you to this love for public speaking?
So I always say when people ask me about this, I say, I think I was born to speak. And it sounds strange, like what does that mean? And I think for me it translates to I'm more comfortable standing on a platform than I am sitting in the audience.
Yes.
I remember the first time being on a platform, I think I must have been about 4.
Wow.
And
okay.
I remember it. I remember loving it. I
Yeah.
remember enjoying every moment of the platform and performance. And that was followed by getting a role. When I was 8 years old, I got a role in a school play. It was called The Peddler of Swaffham, and I was a policeman. But I was the only 8-year-old with a line, a speaking line, in that play. And I think ever since then, I really have enjoyed sort of being on the platform, standing on the platform. But I think as you grow older, you start to ask yourself questions like, what's the point and purpose of it? Am I on the platform just because I'm good on stage, or I've got presence, like you said?
Sure.
Or is there some kind of reason that I have this ability to stand on a platform and to make impact? And I think over the years, the story has become one of how do I use this platform that's been so graciously given to make an impact?
Of course, man, and I love that. That just like went right into what I was about to say now. I mean, you tell the African story in a very interesting way. I mean, I'm appreciative of the arts, and in a lot of ways, I'm more leaning to the music side of it. Sure. But what you do is very much similar to what a performer does, a poet, whether it's a rapper on stage, but you affect people in a very different way, and that your market is largely African women. Or actually, let's take it from like the very, very beginning of it. The African girl who's growing up to be a woman. So how do you use your stories to kind of influence and affect how the women view themselves as they grow up?
I'll start off by saying that I didn't realize that I would stand on platforms to tell the story of an African girl who's evolved into an African woman, or that I would be reflecting the stories of African people in general. I think it's so interesting you should mention poetry, because that's where it started for me. I remember when I was in university, we'd have a lot of these poetry sessions and open mic sessions, and I would boldly get up and go and share my poems. And I remember specifically there was a poem I wrote, which was about the queens of Africa. I'm talking to you. I said, get up, stand up, blah, blah, blah. And I saw that there was great reception. And the reception was that there is a hunger for Black African women to celebrate themselves and to revel in who they are and to revel in their stories. So ironically, it was poetry that took me to the place, or that unlocked what the stories are that need to be told. So I stood on a platform, I shared a poem about African women, or a poem about myself, or a poem about whatever. And the audience would respond in ways that suggested to me that people wanted to be speaking about these things.
Yes.
And so I think I leaned in with a curiosity, and I said, what if I took it a little bit further?
Sure.
What if I went back to speech writing? I was writing speeches when I was still in high school, and I was debating, and I was doing public speaking. And I said, what if I allowed this to translate into kind of, public speaking stories or speeches, as it were.
So you were doing this at a very, very, very tender age.
I've been doing this all my life. The joke used to be that I used to read the Financial Mail when I was in standard 9 and matric, and The Economist and all that kind of thing, because I was a debater.
Yeah.
And so the business has been literally my love for telling stories and for telling African women stories in particular, with current affairs and politics and African development and what's happening in and around us and the impact we can make. So it's all come together quite beautifully now. And it affords me the opportunity to stand on a platform and to know that we're speaking to things that matter. Things that impact us as Africans, things that impact us as African women in particular. I love women, hey?
Yeah,
like, unapologetically.
I've learned, having seen you a couple of times, the very few times that I've seen you, very respectful to men as well.
Yeah.
But you do wear your womanhood and your feminine side very strongly. And, it's something to be celebrated.
I appreciate that. It's so easy, particularly when we talk about leadership and how we must show up as women in a leadership sort of context. It's easy to forego the qualities and the traits that make us women so incredibly special and bring something unique to the table. Yeah. We bring an incredible uniqueness even to the leadership conversation. So if you say I embody and emulate that, I take it as a compliment, because I believe there's something in how we do things as women that can contribute to the broader leadership narrative. Truly. There's just something about how we do things. I love women.
Of course, guys. I mean, just listen to that. Listen to the power in that voice and just how expressive Zoya is. I mean, Zoya, all of this talk has led you to winning multiple awards. You've achieved so many things. I mean, we can list them all. Just maybe off the top, can you just give me like maybe one of your proudest or maybe two of your proudest achievements and awards while we're on that? You in a space that's not very publicized, especially coming from Eastern Cape, being from a black family, you talking about public speaking. It's like, what the hell is that? So which award to you means the most? And, when you took it back home, you felt like, oh man, I've now achieved something. And here you go to all you naysayers. This is what I've achieved. Being a woman and being a woman, speaking of women empowering each other and themselves.
I mean, if we're talking literally about awards that have meant something to me, in 2014, I made the decision, after I'd had my first child in 2013, that I wasn't going to stick out the corporate thing forever. Yes. I knew that my whatever impact I would make in the world wasn't going to happen from within a corporate space. And I made the decision in 2014 that I was going to leave corporate. That was it. I was leaving corporate. And alongside that decision was a very clear sense that I wanted to stand on big stages, international stages. And so I entered the speaking competition through Toastmasters. And I was very deliberate about the fact that I was going to win that competition. One, because starting my business hinged on the credibility that contest would give me. So I didn't enter it haphazardly or kind of with like, I'm just doing it today. It wasn't, no. I said, I'm going to enter this competition because I'm going to become the 2015, champion for speaking for Southern Africa. So I was clear that that's what it was. Yeah. And I think when it became a reality, it didn't feel like it was new. That's the first thing. It didn't feel like it was new. It felt like I was standing on the stage I knew I was going to ultimately get to. Yeah. And what that did for me is, it said, one, it's possible, absolutely, but it opened things up for me in a big way, because then I had the opportunity to go and represent the continent at the World Championships of Speaking. Now, that's huge.
That is huge.
That's now taking it to another level and kind of going,
Okay, yeah. We're here now. Yeah.
And I think that experience was absolutely mind-blowing for me. So I'm proud of that. Coupled with the fact that the trophy was this big.
Sure.
I kid you not. And my baby at the time she was going to be 2 years old, or she was just over 2. Yeah. And she could fit into it.
Oh, wow.
So my little baby girl would climb into it. And I was proud. I was proud that I won this thing, but that my child could be part of that story.
Exactly.
And so we laugh about it years later, and I show her pictures. I say, look at you. You were 2 years old, and you used to climb into mommy's gigantic trophy, which I got to keep, for a certain amount of time. So I'm very proud of that. But I also want to respond to something you said about growing up in a black home, public speaking, etc. It's interesting. So I grew up in a home of politicians predominantly. So my mother was very well traveled. Yeah. And so because she was well traveled, she interacted very differently with the world.
Yes.
She was very open. She'd seen the world. She'd seen places. She wrote a lot. And so the speaking and the writing gift, I call it a gift, I think comes from them. My grandfather was an Anglican priest. And so the speaking, the writing is actually coming from the family.
Yeah.
And so it was nurtured from the get-go.
Yeah.
We didn't make spelling mistakes. We read extensively in our home. Not because we wanted to necessarily, but because my mother said reading takes you to places that you can't go to physically.
Yes.
And so read and open your mind up, and then one day you can go to those places. So I have to credit my family in that respect to say, when I said I want to study a mixture of politics and drama, my parents didn't say no. They said go for it because this is who you are. So yeah, I want to credit my family there. And then, of course, just to acknowledge that for me, a really special, award was that 2015, championship. And of course, I have dreams to become the world champion.
And you're still going at it right now.
And so I'm working towards that. And in fact, I was saying to my husband the other day, I said, love, actually, I think I'm ready to become a world champion.
Well, I mean, I wish to see you there holding up the trophy, flying the flag for us down here in South Africa. Yeah. But I mean, Zoya, everything now, we've spoken a lot about being on stage and presenting on stage and having people that are kind of interacting and sharing an energy with you. Now 2020, suddenly in March, we were hit by this thing and we're all in lockdown. And obviously you had to shift and change the way you do your speaking. So how has that changed, and what improvements or what tips and tricks maybe have you learned in this process?
I mean, that's a huge, that's a difficult one. I remember thinking to myself, how does a speaker, and particularly when you think about the speaker I'm expressive. I'm there with my whole board and all of me. So how does somebody who is expressive, who speaks as I do in the way I do, convert to kind of this very restrained way of presenting? How do we do it? How do we navigate that? How do we translate that real-time audience connection, that thing that happens when you connect with somebody's eyes in the audience and Uti, we are here, heart to heart,
hit the
looking
mark,
at them, and you can feel it. How do you maintain all of that across virtual platforms? I was scared. I was like, we're not going to be able to do this. And this is the end of life as I know it. And in fact, I'm not going to have work after this, I promise you. And then you take a step back and you kind of sit in it a little bit. And then you go, what if? What if we just try it?
Sure.
And I think it was that willingness to say, what if we tried a different way? What if? Let's just see how it might happen.
Because I mean, in so many ways, isn't that kind of like how you practice before you go do your actual talk?
100%.
Yeah.
It's how you practice. And so, step back, and then I said, let's see how the world is responding, and let's kind of just also move with it and see.
Sure.
It wasn't easy from the get-go. Technology can be very overwhelming when you don't know what you're doing, and there's lots of things coming at you. There's sound here, then you need light, and you are too dark. People can't see you, but they can hear you. Then they hear you, then the connection breaks, and they can't hear you properly. Yes. And so all of those things being barriers to communication were real, incredibly real.
Yeah.
And I think over the period of time that I have now been sort of presenting online, I've put a couple of things in place. Sure. The first is I invested in light. I know what good lighting can do. And now the comments I get are, it looks like, Ingati angel.
Yeah.
And I think,
you've got like a halo
you've got
over
this
your
halo
head.
around you, you've got light. Lighting is so important for this. People being able to hear you properly. So I invested in earphones that come with a microphone. Also really good. I remember we had normal Wi-Fi and we've since upgraded, and now we have fiber.
Yes.
And so it was making sure that all of those technical things are in place. I converted what was a laundry room, come rubbish room, come whatever, into something of an office space.
Exactly.
And so maneuvering and creating a space that could be used as an office space within our home, all of those changes had to happen.
Yeah.
And I think we were surprised at the extent to which we were nimble. We were able to move with it and be quite agile, for lack of a better word. And so those are the things we put in place. And then it was to say, okay, let's think about how we can make online delivery effective. Now we have to look at the content and say, how do we, from a content point of view, make it interesting? And the first thing that became evident was we can no longer do these long sessions.
No.
Concentration spans now are strained even further because you're competing with a cell phone that's sitting here. You're competing with someone's ability to switch off a camera, all those kinds of things. So how do you keep people's attention real time? And we had to be very creative in terms of really saying, as you are working through your content, work through it in such a way that you give people breaks, that you make it interesting and entertaining, that it's not just a talking head, that you get people to actually do tactile things, get them to draw, get them to tear things up, get them to participate. I remember in the beginning stages, one of my challenges was asking a question and then thinking someone is going to respond. And we'd have dead air where people keep quiet. And you're not sure, are people in the room? Are people not here? Who am I talking to? And then you learn tricks around that as well. That perhaps ask a question and then point to a particular person and ask them to come into the plenary. So all those kinds of different ways of working are things I've learned over the past couple of months. It was challenging at the beginning, but I think I've become something of a pro.
Well, hey, you know, we've seen, and I've actually worked with some of your content. And I mean, when I did see you here, I didn't even see a little bit of a flinch, you know. Obviously, there would be times where yourself, you would tell yourself that, it wasn't good enough, being the professional that you are, but you've been doing excellent work.
Thank you.
I mean, one of the things that we spoke about before we even switched the mics on and cameras on is nerves. You know? I've seen even the most professional of people, apparently the thing is, if you don't have nerves before you do anything, then it's not really worth doing. So how do you handle that? How do you handle nerves before you go on a stage? And we just touched on it kind of roughly, but how would you do it now in a setting where people are actually staring at you in the face and all your emotions and expressions are there to be seen? How do you deal with that?
You know that I marry leadership development work with public speaking work. And the reason is because we have to be willing to do that work on ourselves first. That's the first part. Is that I've got to understand for myself who and what this Zoya thing is. What she brings into a space. What she can learn when she's in a space. All of those different things. So for me, it starts at the level of the mindset with which I step into everything. And that's leadership work. This acute sense of awareness of yourself first. What you bring into a space, what people feel after you've left the room, and you were in a space, right? So all of that stuff for me is hugely important. Alongside that is when I get nerves, how do I bring myself back to a place of containment? I go back to that work I've done on myself. When I'm feeling incredibly nervous, I go, just remember that you're stepping into this with an open mind. Remember that you're stepping into this because you have something of value to contribute. Remember, you're stepping into this because you have something to learn. And so because the mindset is already in a good place, oftentimes I step into everything with an openness to say, even if the nerves are there, it's okay. Because you're here to learn, you're here to give and add value, and ultimately something will shift or things will happen because some interaction took place. So nerves are good. We all need that nervous energy. We need to be rattled a little bit.
Just a little bit. Huh?
We need a little bit of that. I mean, I'm passionate about this idea of moving from what's comfortable to what's uncomfortable. We need that comfort, that discomfort, that little bit of discomfort. And we know from neuroscience and from life that when you're operating from a place of discomfort, what happens? You're stretched a little bit.
Exactly.
You're stretched, you grow a little bit.
And that's all the goods come out.
That's where the goods come out. And so we need a little bit of that nervous energy. How do you channel it? You channel it by going back to that, why am I here? What am I here to do? What am I here to learn? And then you kind of get a little bit still. It's okay, I'm enough. I deserve to be here. I have something of value to contribute. And that assists me in terms of handling nerves. I was on a panel discussion. I was the least senior person in that panel discussion. And you could hear it even in the introductions. So they introduced Mr. Bonang Mohale, who's the Chancellor of the University of the Free State, who's written a book, who's done all these amazing things. I haven't written a book. I'm not a chancellor by any stretch of the imagination. And then there was somebody who's a diplomat, some diplomat who's based in Tanzania or whatever. Anyway, they read these long lists, and then when it comes to me, they're like, We have Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa, who's owner of Zoya Speaks. She's passionate about leadership development and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, how? You know?
What's going on
so
here?
my profile was very scant compared to the people on there. And I promise you, my first instinct was, I'm nervous. And I went back to that mental conversation and I said, but they picked you to be part of this conversation, which suggests that you have something of value to contribute.
So you do belong, yes.
You belong here.
Yes.
You understand? You're worthy of this platform with these people. And when I did that, the nerves dissipated and I could operate and really add value.
So that's exactly it, guys. I mean, listen to that. Please, guys, remember when you're stepping into a place, whether you're the person speaking or you're one sitting and getting the address from the person speaking, remember to just teach yourself you are belonging, you are worthy of being in that space. You are not there by a mistake. Keep yourself together. Remember what you learned in the beginning. You are prepared to do what you're doing. And also guard your energy, guys. Remember, whatever you're bringing to people, people are receiving, and whatever energy you're putting in the room is exactly what you're going to get back. But of course, Zoya, we're going to continue, and we are now reaching the end of 2020. It's been a crazy, hectic one. We've been talking, I mean, you saying you're exhausted right now. One of our premiere episodes for the podcast was talking about having a full stop at the end of the day, or in this case, at the end of the year. So how does Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa relax? What is your plan for the end of 2020?
It is to put away the computer screen, my friend.
Yes.
I'm officially all right with the screen. So I'm going to pack my laptop away and put it away. I love to read. I recharge by reading. I love getting lost in stories and novels and things like that. So I am going to do that. I love the beach and nature. And so we are traveling to Cape Town, which is wonderful.
Nice.
And we're going to spend some time by the beach as a family, really enjoying the
Please
sun.
Please take some of us
beach.
with you, man.
Hey, my brother. So it is really going to be taking time out. In a real kind of, let's be out and about, let's do grass, let's do water.
Back
and then
to the
just
stuff
reading,
we missed, man.
and then sleep. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to catch up on sleep. Sleep is so important. And I realized this because of my little daughter, who, when we went away for a 3-day break, said, Mommy, every time she'd have like food, we'd wake up, she'd have breakfast, and then she'd say, Mommy, I'm just going to take a quick nap. And
just
she'd nap.
Relax.
And then she'd get up again, we'd do something, she'd say, Mommy, I'm just going to take a quick nap. I'm going to be napping throughout my holiday. I'm going to allow myself to really just relax.
Oh man, powerful, guys. Read some books, guys. Get out there, enjoy life, enjoy nature, go to the beach, take walks, take your woman out, man. Take your wife out, take your kids out. Ladies, do the same for your husbands. And let's just all get back our energies, because I feel like 2020 is just like sucked the life out of us.
It has.
And I mean, to all of the people who've improved their businesses, who've made a lot of money, who've made successes of themselves, guys, it's time to now start thinking about how you're going to take the foot off the accelerator for a little bit and just reward yourself and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yes. I'm all for that one.
So Zoya, it's been lovely chatting to you, and we're looking forward to having you here quite a few times, because I know you stay busy. But since you are off social media, how do we get a hold of Zoya Mabuto? Now, if I'm trying to go into coaching or I need some help for a speech I'm delivering in the near future, where do I find Zoya?
So Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa personally is off social media. Zoya Speaks is still on social media. So you can email us info@zoyaspeaks.co.za. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on what's the other one, Twitter. We are on all the social media platforms. Zoya Speaks.
Nice.
And that's it.
There you have it, guys. Zoya Speaks is here in the flesh. It is Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa. Pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Like I said, guys, we're releasing an episode every Thursday. We are on Spotify officially. We're also on Iono FM, and we're building up to other interesting sites. And of course, you can also catch this episode on YouTube that we'll be releasing in the near future. So from myself, KG Habiani, from the networking company and the LvL Up Podcast, I want to say peace and love to all of you. Any last words, Zoya?
I think we all have a story to tell. So find what your story is, and then, spend time, invest time to tell your story. Your story deserves to be heard.
There you have it, guys. Your story deserves to be heard. Signing out, LvL Up Podcast.